you don't know who I am, it's time we meet. My name is Paula, and ain't that sweet? And here's why you should listen to me, because I have the answers to where you want to be. What I want you to know is that I'm not from here, and I had a very different career. Instead of getting a job like an average Jane, I'm a dancer and a singer, and I studied things arcane, like the brain. That taught me that most trainings are simply insane. They want you to be more motivated and productive. They want you to keep score and be very, very active. And then everyone says, that sounds so good, but they'll never do it, even though they should. I want you to know it's not your fault. You need to take these trainings with a grain of salt, because there is a missing piece. Without that piece, it might as well be in Chinese. You will struggle and never reach expertise. But my trainings fill in the gap, so you will learn everything in a snap. Because studying the brain made it perfectly clear that only the organized brain solves problems, my dear, no matter how severe. And you will have all your answers right here. Welcome to my show, One Solution for Everything, where we meet every Tuesday to present one solution for everything, which has to do with organizing your brain and activating your own inner intelligence to solve problems. Let me introduce myself. My name is Paula Oleska, and I'm a best-selling author, mindset maverick, procrastination wrangler, and the creator of the Brain Upgrade Method that blends magic and science to create radical, rapid results. Some of those results have to do with organizing your brain. As a matter of fact, all of them have to do with organizing your brain, because this is the one solution for everything, the main theme of my show here. So let me start with a quote that you may have seen, and I start all of my episodes with this as a review because it's very important for the things we are talking about. So this quote says that what lies behind you and before you is not as important as what lies within you. And I think we can all agree. The only problem is, how do you get in touch with this? How do you unlock that treasury of intelligence, talent, and knowledge that you have within you that you don't usually access? You may have heard that we use only 10% of our brain. By the way, that's based on bad research. But anyway, it's a good way to think about your potential. So imagine if you could use all of the brain, the missing 90%, to activate all of that power that you have within you. What will your life look like? And this is what this show is about. We unlock your inner intelligence, and it has to do with your brain. So I will also review the main premise behind all of my shows, which is shifting from what I call the old paradigm to the new paradigm. You have encountered the old paradigm every day of your life because all of your education has been based in the old paradigm. Old paradigm is mind-based, and it tells you that you need to use your mind to solve all of your problems. You need to sit and listen when you're learning, and then somehow magically you're going to be able to do it. And then you also need to use your mind to change your emotional state, to change your behavior, and even to change your thoughts. Did you notice how hard it is to change your thinking with thinking? Well, it certainly did not work for me, and it doesn't work for any of the people who work with me, and that's why they found me, because they were frustrated with the old methods, just like I was. So I was looking for better solutions, and that led me to creating a new paradigm. The new paradigm works with mind and body together, and it's supported by the most current neuroscience. Let's summarize what it is. First of all, your brain is no longer considered just a singular structure in your body, in your head. It is a communication network that extends throughout your whole body. Throughout your whole body. Completely different idea about what your brain really is. Your body is intelligent. So intelligence is no longer in your head. It is really spread out throughout your body. And what is even more revolutionary, that your mind comes from your body. It's no longer the tip of the pyramid that is supposed to control everything below. It's actually something that emerges from how you process information in your body. This discovery is supported by the most current branch of neuroscience called embodied cognition. And this is so powerful and so magical that I just love that, and I want you to really register that. Your mind comes from your body. So if you really want to get results, you need to engage your body, especially in very targeted ways that will create different circuitry in your brain, and they will immediately transform your thoughts, feelings, and behavior. And that's why it looks like magic, because in effect, you're not doing almost anything, and yet things change radically. So this is the essence of the new paradigm, the philosophy that underlies all of my segments. And in today's segment, we're going to talk about whole brain approach to solving emotional problems. And before we get to that, I'm going to recap a little bit of what we talked in the last segment, because then we'll continue in what we are going to be talking about today. In the last segment, I told you a fairy tale, because we blend magic and science, as I said, and we are going to focus on resolving emotional issues to restore clarity of mind. And this is part 2, because part 1 was last week. So the fairy tale I told you in my last episode was that a wise old woman helped a young girl avoid breaking up a relationship with a magic circle of rings. And then I revealed that the girl was actually my client, and she did indeed have a magic circle of rings, which I had given her a while earlier, and indeed she was able to prevent the breakup of a relationship. So the reason I use the word magic so much is because when I was a child, I thought everything was magical. Anything was possible, and I loved to test my magic by predicting which type of bus was going to arrive at the bus stop. And one time I remember I told my mother when the phone rang that there was a call from a blonde woman. And indeed, it was a call from a blonde woman who I actually did not know. So I was convinced that I had magical powers. But then when I went to school, I call it was educated out of me. I learned to study, to be very thorough and logical, and I switched to my left brain. You see, the magic is the right brain perception, and education gives you a lot of left brain skills. So I switched to my left brain, and I forgot about magic. But through these different twists and turns, I found myself in New York City. and I started to discover my magic. It was initially because I found this very magical technique that allowed me to literally in seconds or minutes help people feel better. And by using that and then expanding to other very magical tools, I was able to create my system called Brain Upgrade, which is a whole brain system where we are able to integrate magic and science. So maybe you want to know what the magic circle of Ring is, but we'll have to do a little bit more digging before we get to that. So you see, my client's problem wasn't just that she wanted to break up with her boyfriend. There was an underlying problem. The problem was that she had an emotional charge. In case you wonder what an emotional charge is, well, have you ever felt like this couple in the picture? Sometimes it looks like that. That's when something gets under your skin and you don't know how to get rid of it. So what do you think? If you get rid of the emotional charge, would it solve the problem? Take a few minutes or seconds to think about that. Well, if you said yes, you were right. However, if you said no, you were also right. How could that be? Well, because the problems come in layers. Getting rid of the emotional charge would only solve one layer. And there is a problem underneath that one. For instance, one of my clients had a huge emotional charge on anything that was said in a critical way or she perceived to be critical of her, or when it did not meet her expectations. And she would get very insulted, and then she would engage in behavior that reflected that feeling insulted. So eventually, through our work, she got rid of the emotional charge, but it didn't solve the underlying problem. The underlying problem was that she felt that she needs to take care of other people and she's responsible for other people's happiness in her life, while she was not entitled to take care of herself in the same way. And that was the real problem. So solving the emotional charge only opened up the avenue to solve the underlying problem. The only problem with the advice you get about solving your emotional charge is that it's very shallow, such as take a few deep breaths, focus on something positive, force yourself to have a positive attitude. It's not just absurd. If you're in the middle of being upset, how can you force yourself to have a positive attitude? I think it's very difficult. And the one that's even more difficult and really absurd is just don't think about it. Now, how are you going to do that? My experience is that people don't really do that. Of course, I ask my clients and students in my workshops whether they are able to do or apply this brilliant advice. And all of them say that they really can't. That at the best, it works for a few moments, and then everything goes back to being the same, which is being upset and not knowing what to do about that. And besides, this is trying to use logic and not magic. And I am into magic. Not that logic is not helpful, but let's try to find some magical solutions. And the worst thing of that kind of advice, as I already mentioned, that it doesn't really work, and it only makes people feel guilty because not only they think it should work for them, but they also hear that from all the experts who have told them to use that you're not doing it well enough, you are not working hard enough, you must be doing it wrong, because it works for so many people. To be honest with you, I think these techniques only work for about 10% of the population, but these people are very loud and they think that it should work for everybody else, but it doesn't. So let's find out why it doesn't work. And that requires my professor persona. And I'll explain to you some very important, crucial things about your brain. You see, most people know that you have right and left brain hemispheres on top of your brain, but underneath that structure, you have two other very powerful structures. You have your emotional brain and you have your behavioral brain. So your emotional brain is in the middle of your head, and your behavioral brain is the back. They have very specific functions, and we did a couple of segments on the behavioral brain, so I'll just be very brief about that. But you do have a part of your brain that is devoted to emotions, and it also governs relationships. And your behavioral brain governs your behavior, habits, and movement. So what is important for you to notice is that this bracket shows you that these two parts of your brain do not respond to words. They don't respond or understand words, logic, and reason. And that's why if you try to talk yourself out of your emotional charge, it's not going to work.
Are you talking about me? Are you mentioning the word emotions?
Yes, I am. Welcome. This is the limbic Teddy. It's one of my helpers who help me in different segments. And Teddy loves to talk about emotions.
Yes, I do. I love to talk about emotions because this is a very important thing. But I cannot think very well when I feel emotions. So don't try to reason with me because I don't get it.
Yes, I know you don't get it. So what should we do?
Well, you see, I like when someone gently talks to me or hugs me and tells me that I'm okay, then I can really calm down. But don't try to tell me that I should do something different or feel something different from what I'm feeling because I just can't do that. And it makes me feel pretty bad about myself. And also, it makes me angry. And I don't like being angry. So remember, when you get upset, don't try to reason with yourself. And when someone else is upset, don't tell them that they should not be upset because they can't. You should really give them some comfort.
You know, that's a very good idea. You're a very smart little Teddy.
Of course I am.
So thank you. You can show up in another segment.
Okay. And for now,
You see, Limbic Teddy really loves to talk about emotions. And I think he shared some very important things, which is that if you really apply this principle, that if you really understand that your emotional and behavioral brain, which governs your behavior and your movement, includes, you know, what your hands do and what your breathing does and all the other things about your posture when you get upset, that means angry or scared or sad, that those parts of your brain do not understand words, logic, or reason, but they do respond to movement, touch, and emotion. So when you want to comfort somebody who feels upset, you can put your arm around them. If you have that kind of relationship, you can gently touch them on the shoulder. And looking at them with compassion, you could say, I understand this is a very difficult situation. Because it is for that person. And you don't have to agree with the reasons for that person about being upset, but you can acknowledge that they are upset, and that will calm people down almost immediately. So I do a lot of role plays in my workshops when I teach that. So we do one role play when one person is the very upset person and the other person represents logic. So the first person says like, I can't stand it. My girlfriend just insulted me. And the logic person says, well, it's not the end of the world. It's just words. Don't worry about it. And then we find out, so I asked the other person, how do you feel? And she said, it makes me so mad. And no matter who plays that role, their response is usually the same. So then we do a different role play. The person is still acting out being upset. And then the other person comes over and does what I just described to you, which is it's usually women. So she looks at the other person with compassion, nods her head, or even hugs her or puts her arm around her and says, yes, I understand. It's very upsetting, but I'm here for you. And the other person calms down almost immediately. So this is just one step. There are some other steps that need to be taken, and we'll talk about that in one of the upcoming segments. But I just want you to really remember that talking to people and giving them good advice, quote unquote, when they are upset doesn't really work, because it's not a whole brain approach, it's only left brain approach. And your left brain doesn't really understand emotions. We'll get to talk about that in another segment. So now, let's look at, so I put away my professor persona, and let's look at the possibility that maybe there is a magical way to get rid of your emotional charge and solve the underlying problem. I wonder. No, there isn't. Well, of course there is. That's why we are here and we are talking about that. And what I'm talking about is much more magical, because that's my specialty. And the solution is the magic circle of rings. But we are almost at the end of our segment today, so we will come back to that in our next segment, and we'll get into some real science of emotions, because you need to know that before we give you a solution. So this is what we are going to be talking about in my next episode. In the meantime, if you would like to find out how unleashing your own inner intelligence, you're getting rid of emotional charge and solving the underlying problems is going to help you achieve your goals, please send me an email at paula@brainupgrade.biz to schedule your free consultation, when we can discuss what is bothering you, what is underneath that, and what will be the type of action that will help you resolve that. I work with clients all the time, and they resolve the emotional issues no matter what they are. So one of my clients had an issue about not being able to travel. She talked for a long time that she wanted to go somewhere else and live in a warmer climate. And even though she made a lot of other changes in her life, she changed professions, developed a lot more professional skills. She even pursued some artistic endeavors, but she never was able to get to travel. But in one of her more recent sessions, she was able to resolve that. We resolved the emotional charge. She found how she could do it. And 1, 2, 3, she did some research and moved to another state, which makes her much happier. And another of my clients resolved her emotional charge about responding to her husband's very unkind words. But then the underlying problem was also that she also did not feel that she had the rights in the relationship. And she started to stand up for herself much more, and that brought the relationship into a much bigger balance. So these things happen in a very short amount of time. And things like that can also happen to you. So I encourage you to email me for your free consultation at paula@brainupgrade.biz, and I look forward to seeing you.